Today, I'm taking over the Deep Drive story time to tell you about a woman that lived an incredible life. Bertha-Benz was the original feral wife.
Hey, I have one of those.
Oh, you do you?
Don't pretend you aren't. You are more feral, you eat trash, don't drink enough water, and you lose your shit when cornered.
Valid? Although I think that may be a modern feral wife. Cecile Bertha Riener was born on May 3, 1849, in Pforzheim, Germany. Her father was a successful carpenter and married a woman 20 years younger than him. Her parents invested a lot in the education of their 9 children. Bertha was the third in line. She went to a boarding school for 10 years, where she loved to learn about tech innovation. Unfortunately, those 10 years were the extent of her formal education, because Bertha was born with a vagina. Don't the 1800s sound like a hoot?
As a white male, that doesn't sound too bad to me.
Well, that's gonna cost you. But it is Germany, so it's gonna get so much worse before it gets better. A few times. But back to Bertha. While at the Eintracht Club, a social club, on June 27th, in 1869, a newly 20-year-old Bertha met a man with a bunch of crazy ideas and very little time for feelings, so he may have been autistic.
Can you say that?
I mean, technically I can say anything, but I will admit that is not confirmed. This man was Carl Benz. He was 25 and penniless, but Bertha was in love. In 1870, Bertha invested part of her dowry, she was still 2 years away from getting married, in Carl's iron construction company, even though it was failing. Being single was her only opportunity to invest, because under German law, after she wed, she would no longer have the power to invest. 1800s Germany is gonna make me a feminist.
You want me to get you some new graphic tees from Amazon?
No. She and Carl got married on July 20th in 1872. Because Bertha had believed in Carl enough to invest in him, he had left the construction company that was failing and started Benz & C, a new manufacturing business. In 1873, they welcomed their first child, Eugene. A year later, Richard was born. They continued to use the dowry money to bring his lifelong dream to fruition, the first automobile. At the end of 1875 into 1876, Bertha was pregnant with their third child, Clara, when their workshop was emptied because they were not paying their debts. Despite that, in 1879, on New Year's Eve, they finished up their 2-stroke engine for their first horseless carriage. Bertha and Carl had been married for 13 years working on this together. She was a contributor to the invention, both financially and on a practical engineering front. Carl applied for a patent on their invention, but Bertha, having a vag, wasn't allowed to be acknowledged as being as smart or capable as a man, so she couldn't be on the patent. They couldn't claim the first automobile title either because a bicycle with a motor had already done that. Even without the recognition, though, Bertha was quick to defend her husband against anyone who doubted this invention. In 1882, they welcomed their 4th child, Thilde. Carl showed the public the patent motor wagon in Mannheim on July 3, 1886. Everyone got to see a horseless carriage with powered rear wheels, a ring still and solid rubber steerable front wheel. It even had a seating arrangement options and a top that folded down. I suppose that also makes it the very first convertible. Carl was not great at marketing, and the public, well, they believed that horseless carriages were unsafe and unreliable. Bertha believed that a test drive could prove the public wrong. So on August 5th, 1888, with her teenage sons in tow, Bertha Benz drove from Mannheim to Pforzheim at 39 years old. She did not tell her husband. She didn't ask for permission from the authorities. She just told the 13-year-old Richard and the 15-year-old Eugene to get in the car, and they went to visit her parents. It was the first time an automobile had been driven any real distance. Up to this point, car trips were short trial runs. They always returned to the starting point, and there were always mechanics in tow. Without any actual roads, Bertha followed some wagon tracks and made the 66-mile one-way trip.
Look at her go. That is no fear.
Right? You see, Bertha wanted to see her mom, but more than that, she wanted to prove to Carl, who was not thinking big picture about this invention, that this was a success just waiting to take off. It just needed to be shown to the public that it was useful, and that his confidence needed a boost. She left close to dawn, and now a 66-mile trip these days isn't far, but for Bertha, it was a hell of a trip. She ran into several issues, but she used her technical abilities along the way and kept moving forward. The car didn't have a fuel tank, just 4.5 liters, or about 1.2 gallons, of petrol in the carburetor. This required her to stop and find Lagroin. It's a petrol solvent. The Lagroin was only sold at pharmacies. She made her first stop to fuel up at a pharmacy in Westlock, making it the first fuel station ever. Some other issues she ran into, and subsequently solved by herself, using her hat pin to clear a blocked fuel line, using her garter as insulation material, finding a blacksmith to repair a chain, finding a cobbler to use leather to make the world's first pair of brake linings for the failing wooden brakes. They used an evaporation cooling system, so water was added at every stop, and when they encountered steep inclines, the boys would get out and push. The group of world changers made it to their destination just a little after dusk. Bertha then telegrammed Carl to let him know that she had made it, and after several days of visiting with her family, she drove back, proving that this innovation was useful and it worked. She also proved that having a vagina is in fact not a handicap.
In my experience, having one isn't the handicap. It's wanting to be in one that is.
Ignoring you?
I understand why you do this part. It's fun just to jump in.
Not everyone saw it my way, though. Authorities were not pleased. This trip was officially forbidden, and Bertha risked being penalized. It was an incredibly dangerous trip to have taken. There were no roads or signs except the occasional signpost. The car was fragile and unproven, and the terrain and wagon trail conditions made this a life-threatening trip. The wagon had 4 wheels, but this car has 3, 1 in the front, 2 in the back. The front tire was dainty and had to be used to navigate over thick tufts of grass, sticks, and stones. While I didn't see any mention of her undergarments in my research, I can't help but hope that she had very small boobs, because there is no bra on this planet that would keep me from having 2 black eyes.
Want to take a trip down a bumpy road with a 3-wheeled horseless carriage?
This trip was the talk of the town. Bertha had accomplished a few of the things she wanted, seeing her parents, garnering publicity for the car. She shared everything that happened on this trip and even had valuable ideas for the improvements, like a gear for hills and brake pads. Carl and Bertha made a lot of improvements using her experience. The trip also proved the importance of test drives for the automotive industry. In 1890, the couple welcomed their final child, Ellen. Bertha's now famous drive made Benz & C the world's biggest car company at that time. In 1906, the Benz family loaded up and moved to Ladenburg to start another family business, Benz Sons. The rising inflation from 1914 to 1923 led to the closing in 1924. In Carl's memoirs, he wrote,
"Only one person remained with me in the small ship of life when it seemed destined to sink. That was my wife. Bravely and resolutely, she set the new sail of hope."
Aww.
Their company, Benz & C, merged with Gottlieb Daimler and Wilhelm Maybach to create Daimler-Benz, what would become Mercedes Benz. Carl died in 1929, the beginning of the Great Depression. Bertha withdrew from the world, choosing to live the rest of her life in her Ladenburg villa. With the First Great War and the hyperinflation, Bertha's fortune had dwindled, not that she seemed to care. You see, Bertha had always lived modestly. She did see the hardships and the sadness of the unemployed people, So she wrote to a journalist to see about turning her books into a library so that the unemployed could at least read for free.
Bertha is an amazing woman.
In 1933, when Bertha Benz was 84, she supposedly greeted Adolf Hitler as the savior of Germans.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the National Socialist Party was quick to use the Benz family for propaganda, and within a few months, so around Easter in 1933, had a memorial for Karl in Mannheim with Bertha there for the opening.
Oh, no.
She did later distance herself from Hitler when she realized that his policies were leading them right back into a great war. In 1944, on her 95th birthday, she was given the title of Honorary Senator of the Technical University of Karlsruhe, the same university that her husband had attended, and the same university where she wasn't allowed to go because she was a woman. 2 days later, on May 5th, in 1944, Bertha Benz passed away. In her death, Bertha received several honors. The Bertha Benz Memorial Route was approved as an official route of the industrial heritage of humankind in 2008. It follows the route Bertha took that day. In September 2011, on the 10th and the 11th, the Bertha Benz Challenge took place as part of the ceremony of Automobile Summer. This event took place on the Bertha Benz Memorial Route. It's a big German event that celebrates the birth of the car. The challenge was to show globally new automotive breakthroughs, but was only open for sustainable mobility and future-oriented drive systems. Like hybrid, electric, hydrogen, and other eco-friendly options. There was also a documentary in 2011 called The Car is Born, and it featured Bertha's road trip. In 2016, 42 years after her husband, Karl Benz, Bertha was finally inducted into the Automotive Hall of Fame. The Benz family home, now used for the Daimler and Benz Foundation to have scientific meetings to gain a better understanding of the correlation between man, technology, and the environment, has been designated as a historic site. Bertha Benz was a wife, she was a mother, she was an innovator. She didn't ask for permission or forgiveness. She wasn't content to live the life she was supposed to, but she didn't seem to have a desire to receive accolades either. She was just living her life the way she wanted to when she changed automotive history forever, even with a vagina. Well, that's our video for Bertha Benz. What are your thoughts? Do you have a feral wife? Let us know in the comments. And if you like this video, please leave us a like. If you subscribe, just know that Chrispy and I truly appreciate it. But until next time, this has been Chrispy Wife
And Chrispy Driver.
and have a wonderful day.